Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we are not just telling a story. We are trying to unravel a knot. And I mean a knot that has been pulled tight by more than 20 years of silence, trauma, and some really dark secrets.
It's a serious one. We've got a stack of materials here. Police dossiers, witness statements, cold case files, and they all paint this picture of Fife in Scotland.
But this is not a travelogue, is it? It's much more like a crime scene, a very, very cold one.
It is. And what makes this deep dive so compelling is that we're actually looking at two distinct mysteries. On the surface, you'd think they have nothing to do with each other.
Not at all.
One involves a missing coal miner from, a pretty poverty-stricken village. The other involves the kidnapping of a wealthy heir from an actual castle.
But as we started digging into these documents, we saw that they are absolutely bound together, bound by geography and by this one incredibly volatile moment in history.
The miners' strike of 1984.
I think we need to set the stage properly here before we get into the characters, because for a lot of people listening, the miners' strike might just be a line in a history book.
Oh, yeah.
But looking at these sources, it feels more like a war zone.
It was a war zone, in a sense. We're talking about 1984. Fife is a mining community. And when that strike happened, it wasn't just about wages. It was existential.
Right.
The source material describes a level of economic violence that is, well, it's hard to wrap your head around today. We're not just talking about being short on cash.
No, this is something else entirely. We're talking about families, proud working-class families, who were chopping up their own furniture to burn in the fireplace.
Because they couldn't afford coal.
That image just really stuck with me. You're a miner, you dig coal for a living, and you're having to burn your own dining chair to keep your kids from freezing.
Exactly. I mean, the documents mention soup kitchens running daily. There was a hardship fund, but it was paying out pennies on the dollar of what was actually needed.
And this context is so crucial, isn't it? Because it explains this idea of darker domain that we're going to talk about.
It does. When people are pushed to that level of desperation, normal morality starts to fracture. The line between us and them becomes absolute. You were either solid, loyal to the Union, starving with your neighbors, or you were a traitor.
And that brings us to our catalyst. We're going to jump forward in time to 2007. We have a woman named Misha Gibson. She's the daughter of a miner, Mick Prentice.
And she walks into a police station. But not to solve a crime. She's there to save a life.
This is where the stakes go from historical to just incredibly immediate and personal.
Misha's son, Luke, is dying. He's been diagnosed with Fanconi anemia.
I want to pause here because the medical details in the dossier are quite specific and, frankly, terrifying. This isn't just leukemia. Can you break down why this specific diagnosis forces Misha to dig up this whole ugly past?
So, Fanconi anemia is a rare genetic disease. It essentially causes bone marrow failure.
Yep.
The body just stops producing blood cells. It's a ticking clock.
And the only cure is a transplant.
The only real cure is a stem cell transplant. But here's the catch. It's a recessive condition. That means both Misha and her husband are carriers, which is why Luke has it, but it also means they aren't genetic matches for the transplant themselves.
So the parents are out. Usually you'd look to siblings next, right?
Correct, but there are no matches there either. The doctors tell Misha her best hope, maybe her only hope, is what's called a mismatched related transplant.
Meaning they need a grandparent.
They need a grandparent. They need Misha's father.
Mick Prentice, the man who, according to everyone in their village, abandoned his family in the dead of winter in 1984.
That's the narrative Misha has lived with her entire life. The story goes that on December 14th, 1984, in the middle of all that freezing poverty we just talked about, Mick Prentice walked out on his wife, Jenny, and his daughter, Misha.
To go to Nottingham. And we really need to clarify what Nottingham meant in this context. He didn't just go on a trip.
No. Nottingham was where the Union of Democratic Mine Workers was based. They kept working. They didn't join the strike. So for a Fife miner to go to Nottingham, that was crossing the picket line. It made him a scab.
That word scab, it appears over and over again in these witness statements, and it's clearly not just an insult.
It's a brand. It's a social death sentence. When Mick supposedly left to be a scab, he didn't just leave the town. He destroyed his family's standing. His wife, Jenny Prentice, became a pariah.
She was the wife of a traitor.
The community just ostracized her completely.
And Jenny's reaction to this, it's so intense. She doesn't just seem angry. She seems to hate him with a passion that has not faded one bit in 22 years. She actually told the police he is dead to her.
Her hatred is her armor. I think it's how she survived the shame.
Yeah.
And there's a physical element to this betrayal, too. For years, Jenny received these envelopes of cash.
With a Nottingham postmark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The blood money.
That's what she called it.
It is. And this detail, it tells you everything you need to know about Jenny Prentice. She was a single mother, destitute, relying on soup kitchens, yet she took every single penny of that cash.
And gave it away.
Donated it to the Miners' Hardship Fund. She refused to buy food or clothes for Misha with it. She would rather her family starve than use what she called traitor money.
That is a level of principled stubbornness that is almost frightening. But now Misha has to break that principle. She needs her father's bone marrow.
She has no choice.
So she goes to the police, specifically the cold case review team in Fife. And this is where we meet Detective Inspector Karen Peary.
Karen Peary is, she's a fantastic character to guide us through this whole mess. She isn't your typical select TV detective at all.
No.
The reports paint her as totally unpretentious, constantly fighting a losing battle with her weight. Bacon rolls are mentioned a lot, and she has a very, very low tolerance for bureaucracy.
Or for her boss, apparently. The macaroon.
Yes. Assistant Chief Constable Simon Lees. Karen calls him the macaroon.
I have to ask about that nickname. It sounds almost cute, but the context in the notes suggests it's actually quite biting.
Oh, it is. It refers to a Scottish, sweet, a macaroon bar. But there's an old advertising jingle associated with it that has some, let's say, problematic racial undertones. But beyond that, Karen uses it because a macaroon is sweet, sugary, and it crumbles easily.
She thinks he's fragile.
She thinks Lee's is soft. He's a career climber who cares about metrics and appearances, while Karen, she just cares about the truth.
So Karen takes this case, and it's not even technically a cold case, is it? He was never reported missing.
No, but she's moved by Misha's desperation.
Yeah.
And she spots something immediately that doesn't add up. She goes to interview Jenny Prentice, and amidst all the venom Jenny is spitting about Mick, she mentions his painting.
Right. Mick wasn't just a miner. He was an amateur watercolorist. He loved painting landscapes.
Jenny despised it. She thought it was a waste of time. But she mentions that when Mick disappeared, he took his painting gear.
But he left his clothes.
He left his clothes, his toothbrush, his razor. He took his easel and his paints. Now, you have to ask yourself,
If you are running away to start a new life as a working miner in Nottingham,
do you prioritize your watercolor set over a change of underwear?
it makes absolutely no sense. It sounds more like someone going out for a day trip than someone emigrating.
Exactly. And that one little inconsistency is enough for Karen to pull the thread. The entire town believes Mick went to Nottingham because a group of other men, Billy Frazier, Johnny Ferguson, Ian McLean, they all went to Nottingham that same night.
The scab convoy, essentially.
That's it. So Karen does what nobody has bothered to do for 20 years. She sends a team down to Nottingham to find these men. She wants to actually verify the story.
And this, for me, is the pivot point of the entire Mick Prentice mystery. The report from that Nottingham interview is just, it's explosive.
It completely dismantles the history of the last 2 decades. I mean, the police tracked down Frazier and Ferguson. These men, they admit they broke the strike. They admit they packed a transit van in the middle of the night to sneak away.
But
they are adamant about one thing. Mick Prentice was not in that van.
wait, let's be really precise here. They did see him that night, right?
They did. And they described the scene so vividly. They were loading the van in the dark. Mick just stumbled upon them. He caught them in the act of betraying the Union.
And how did he look?
They said he looked gutted, just absolutely devastated that his friends were doing this. But he did not join them. He just stood there and watched them drive away.
But if he didn't go, then who sent the money? Who sent the cash from Nottingham that fueled Jenny's hatred for 22 years?
Well, the police find the third man, Ian McLean, and under questioning, he just cracks. He admits he sent the
He
money.
did, but why? Why would he do that?
Guilt. Pure and simple. He felt guilty for being a scab, and, maybe he felt guilty for leaving his friend behind in all that poverty. He sent the cash anonymously.
Assuming Jenny would think it was from Mick.
He thought he was helping. He genuinely thought he was doing a good thing.
Helping, he accidentally framed an innocent man. He ruined his life, his reputation.
It's a complete tragedy of errors. His act of kindness convinced Jenny for 2 decades that Mick was a traitor. It fueled 22 years of hatred. But the reality is, Mick Prentice never broke the strike. He stayed solid.
Which means he's missing. For real. If he didn't go to Nottingham and he had no money and he never came home, where is he?
That is the question that shifts this from a simple missing person case to a potential murder inquiry. McPrentice vanished into the dark of that December night.
And just as Karen is reeling from this discovery, the scope of our deep dive just explodes, because just down the road from the miners' little row houses, there's a
A
castle.
literal castle.
And there's a second mystery that has been cold since 1985.
You have to look at the other side of the coin now. The haves to the miners' have-nots.
Yeah.
We're talking about Sir Broderick McLennan Grant. Brodie Grant.
The tycoon.
One of the richest men in Scotland. He owns vast estates, businesses, just enormous wealth. But all that money didn't protect him from the chaos of the mid-'80s.
Not at all.
In January 1985, just a few weeks after McPrentice vanished, Grant's daughter, Katrina, and her infant son, Adam, were kidnapped.
This was a massive headline story at the time, wasn't it?
It was huge, and the details are just tragic. Katrina was a bit of a rebel. She was a glass artist. She totally rejected her father's corporate world, and she'd had a child with a man her father despised.
Fergus Sinclair, the gamekeeper's son.
Again, you see that class divide. Even within the romance, it's always there.
So the kidnapping, it went wrong.
Horribly wrong.
Uh-huh.
There was a botched ransom handover. Katrina died. But the baby, Adam, he was never found. He simply vanished.
So for 22 years, Brodie Grant has been looking for his grandson. And just like Misha, he gets a sudden, unexpected lead in 2007. But this lead comes from a very strange place. We are not in Fife anymore.
No, we're in Tuscany, Italy. A freelance journalist named Belle Richmond is on holiday there. She's exploring a ruined farmhouse, a Casa Rovina.
I love the description of this place in the notes. It's dusty, abandoned, sun-baked. It feels a million miles away from the cold rain of Scotland.
It does. But inside, Belle finds signs of recent life. Sleeping bags, old clothes, and a silkscreen printing press.
A printing press in an abandoned ruin? That's odd.
Very odd. And near it, she finds a poster. It's a woodcut-style image. It shows a puppeteer manipulating a skeleton and a goat. It's a really disturbing, grotesque image.
And Belle recognizes it? Or what it might be?
She's sharp. She realizes it matches the description of the ransom note that was sent to Brodie Grant back in 1985. The group that claimed responsibility called themselves the Anarchist Covenant of Scotland.
And this poster is the first physical proof that they might have been real.
And then somehow, they were in Italy. But she finds something else, something much more visceral than a poster.
A bloodstain.
A large scrubbed blood stain on the floor of this farmhouse.
Okay, this is where the hair goes up on the back of your neck. You have a ransom poster from a 1985 Scottish kidnapping sitting next to a bloodstain in a Tuscan ruin in 2007.
It's a direct physical link across 2 decades and 1,000 miles. Belle Richmond knows she has dynamite, so she contacts Brodie Grant's organization.
And she makes a deal, right? She leverages it.
She does.
Right.
She trades the poster for exclusive access to the story. And Grant, using all his influence, demands that the Fife police investigate this new lead. Specifically, he asks for Karen Peary.
So Kieran is pulled from the council estates to Rothwell Castle. The contrast must have been jarring.
Oh, it's a total collision of worlds.
Yeah.
One minute, Karen is dealing with Jenny Prentice's freezing little house and the legacy of poverty. The next, she has to pass through high-tech security gates to meet a billionaire.
And the meeting is tense.
Very. Grant is a man who is used to being in charge, isn't he?
Absolutely. He tried to control the ransom negotiation back in '85, and it was a disaster. Now he's trying to control Perrin. He wants her to solve this, but on his terms.
But Karen, well, she doesn't really do deferential.
And there's a moment in the briefing with the Grant family that really stood out to me. Karen is there with her colleague, Detective Sergeant Phil Perhotka. And Phil, who's usually the quiet background guy, he just drops a bomb.
That was a stunning moment in the report. They're interviewing Grant and his current wife, Judith. And Phil just bluntly suggests that Judith might not actually want Adam to be found.
He just says the quiet part out loud.
He does. He points out the inheritance implication. If Adam is alive, he's the heir to the Grant fortune. If Adam is presumed dead, Judith's own son with Grant inherits everything.
Wow.
Phil essentially says, you wouldn't be human if you weren't hoping we don't find him.
That is incredibly bold. I mean, how did they react?
Judith was furious, of course. Grant was livid.
Yeah.
But it cracked the facade. It showed that even in this castle, shielded by all this money, there are the same ugly human motivations. Greed. Self-preservation.
It's the darker domain again, just with better furniture.
Exactly. So now Karen has 2 massive cases running parallel. The missing miner, McPrentice, and the missing heir, Adam Grant. One poor, one rich. But as she digs, the lines start to blur.
They really do. And the connection seems to lie in the people who are missing. We know McPrentice is gone, but there is another man from his circle who vanished at the exact same time, Andy Kerr,
Let's talk about Andy. Who was he?
Andy was Mick's best friend. They were a duo, Mick was the leader, the charismatic artist. Andy was the follower, sort of the loyal dog.
And Andy was a union official. The reports say he took the strike very, very hard. He was deeply depressed, feeling the weight of the community's suffering on his shoulders.
And the official story is that he committed suicide.
That was the assumption. He left a note saying he'd had enough and disappeared. His body was never found. His sister, Angie, eventually had him declared dead. But when Karen starts asking questions in 2007, Angie offers a completely different theory.
The Butch Cassidy theory.
Exactly. Angie believes Andy didn't kill himself. She thinks he ran away with Mick. She has this idea that Mick convinced him to just bail on the whole strike and go somewhere else, maybe Poland.
Poland, that seems random.
No, not in 1984. Remember the Solidarity movement in Poland? It was a place where coal miners were seen as heroes of the revolution, not villains. So Angie has this romantic idea that they went there to dig coal with dignity.
It's a nice thought to friends escaping the misery to start over, but it really doesn't fit with the evidence we have, does it?
Not at all.
It doesn't explain the bloodstain in Tuscany.
Rare.
Or the anarchist ransom poster.
No, and it also doesn't explain the tension Angie describes from right before they vanished. She mentions that Andy was acting strange. He told her he felt like Mick was keeping secrets from him.
And secrets between best friends are dangerous, especially in a pressure cooker like that strike.
And you have to remember the geography here. Mick had a secret place. He had keys to a preservation society, both a small hut, near the Wemyss Caves.
He used to paint there.
It was his sanctuary.
His escape.
The caves, that feels significant. I mean, if you wanted to hide something or meet someone you shouldn't be meeting, that's the perfect spot. Karen begins to suspect that whatever happened to Mick and Andy, the answer lies somewhere in those caves, not in Poland.
I want to speculate for a moment here. Based on what we've read, we have a missing miner who we now know wasn't a scab. We have a missing union official who was depressed and angry. And we have a kidnapping of a tycoon's grandson by a group calling themselves anarchists.
Right.
Is it possible these aren't two separate stories at all?
That is the terrifying question Karen Perry has to confront. The police, back in 1985, they thought the anarchist covenant was some sophisticated international terror cell. But what if they were completely wrong?
What if the enemy wasn't foreign?
What if it was local?
From the same community?
Think about the anger we discussed, the economic violence. You are watching your children starve. You are burning your furniture for heat. And just up the road, Brody Grant is sitting in his castle, completely insulated from it all. That kind of inequality breeds rage.
Are you suggesting the miners might have been involved in the kidnapping?
I'm suggesting that desperate people do desperate things. If Andy Kerr was feeling powerless, angry, and he saw a way to strike a blow against the ultimate symbol of his oppression, it's not a huge leap to make, is it?
And Mick, where does he fit into that theory?
That's the mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was Mick involved? Or did he find out what Andy was planning? Remember, Mick was the one with the morals. He caught these scabs and was disgusted by them. If he found out his best friend was planning something unthinkable,
then he becomes a liability, a huge liability.
Exactly. And liabilities in a darker domain tend to disappear.
This just brings us right back to Misha. Because while Karen is unraveling this potential conspiracy theory from 2 decades ago, Misha is watching her son fade away in a hospital bed.
She doesn't have time for this.
No. The investigation isn't just about truth for her, it's about biology.
It's the engine driving the whole narrative. Misha needs mixed bone marrow. She doesn't care about the politics or the kidnapping or the strike. She just needs her father's blood. But she can't get it without digging up the entire sordid truth.
It's a powerful metaphor, isn't it? You can't save the future, the child, without confronting the past.
And you can't heal the wound until you extract the shrapnel. I mean, think about the tragedy of Jenny Prentice. She wasted 22 years hating a man who was innocent of the crime she accused him of. She built her entire identity around being the victim of a traitor.
And now she has to face the fact that she was wrong, that her husband might have been a hero or a victim, but he was never a traitor. That's a heavy psychological burden to carry.
It forces us to ask, how well do we really know the people closest to us? Jenny didn't really know Mick. Andy's sister didn't really know Andy. Even Brody Grant, for all his power, didn't know his own daughter's secrets.
And the physical evidence in Tuscany, that bloodstain, suggests that the secrets didn't stay buried in Fife. They traveled.
That bloodstain is the silent witness. It's been waiting there for 2 decades. It tells us that whatever started in the coal dust of 1984 ended in violence in Italy.
So, To wrap this up for now, we have Misha running out of time. We have Karen Peary realizing that the so-called anarchists might have been the guys from the local pub.
And we have the chilling possibility that Mick Prentice isn't in Nottingham and he isn't in Poland, but he's somewhere much, much closer to home, potentially buried there.
It's a chilling realization. The darker domain isn't a place on a map. It's a moral space. It's what happens when a community is pushed right to the breaking point. Trust just evaporates.
And when trust is gone, anything is possible, even kidnapping, even murder.
It really makes you look at your own neighborhood differently. You know, in a crisis, who do your neighbors become? Who do you become?
That is the lingering question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all like to think we have firm lines we wouldn't cross, but the miners of Fife thought that too until the fire went out and the cupboards were bare.
We're going to have to leave it there for today. We've unpacked the source material, but the story is clearly far from over for Karen Peary. She has to find Mick to save Luke, and she has to solve the Grant mystery to satisfy the tycoon.
And somehow, those two paths are going to cross in the dark.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. It's a heavy story, but one that reminds us that the past is never really dead. It's just waiting for someone to ask the right questions. We'll see you next time.